It is Friday, and you all know what that means.
Yeah!
Welcome, everyone, to episode 374 of everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, The F and Marks.
I'm Jay. He is.
Daniel Jones is trash. I am the brainless one.
I mean, that no truer words have ever been said.
Well, is it because of the fact that since he signed his $160 million contract with the Giants over a year ago, he's thrown more touchdown passes to the other team than he's thrown to his own teammates?
Something like that. All right, the very, very important question before we get really kicked off here. Worst contract, Deshaun Watson, Daniel Jones.
Deshaun Watson, that's not even close, because as bad as Jones's contract is, it's not as much guaranteed money like Cleveland gave Deshaun Watson, what was it, $240 million, all of it guaranteed. Yeah, it's not even close. And the sad part is that with the Giants, they brought in Jones to replace Eli Manning, so you kind of had no choice. You don't want to be the guy that replaces a legend. You want to be the guy who replaces the guy that replaces a legend. Whereas the Browns already had a very solid, very functional quarterback who handled playing in Cleveland, and they just tossed him away. And they brought in Watson.
He still was dealing with an injury.
Because he played.
His shoulder was still jacked up. And I mean, El Jefe was like, get rid of that bum, get rid of that bum. It's like he took you to the playoffs and almost beat the team that won the Super Bowl.
There's not a team in the NFL I want to see win a championship more than the Buccaneers, just because I want, and no offense to El Jefe and all the other Browns fans, it's nothing personal. It's just, it would make me laugh if Baker Mayfield won a title with the Buccaneers. Sorry. If I'm not getting the Giants winning the Super Bowl, I want chaos. And nothing would burn down a city more than Baker Mayfield winning a championship with the Bucs. But that's not why we are here, Cousin Jay. We are here to talk about our favorite sport we love to hate, and that is professional wrestling. And we have a pretty interesting bunch of news to discuss this week on the podcast.
Yeah.
PWI released a little later than usual their top 300, 500, 8 million wrestlers in the world list. I would like to discuss the top 10 just a little bit. We also have the return of Bret the Hitman Hart to Monday Night Raw this week.
Yep.
We found out some interesting news about Monday Night Raw going forward for the rest of this year. What that means for the future once they move to Netflix will be determined. But we did find some interesting news about that. We also have the season premiere of SmackDown tonight. Very interesting. They're getting ready to make the move to the USA Network. I believe, is it tonight that they move to the USA Network?
Yes, that's why they got the Cody versus Solo match in the cage to have like a big opening, so to speak.
That's such an interesting and weird flex to have that match start when a lot of people are expecting Roman Reigns and several other Samoans to come and make an appearance and just get involved in this match, because I've heard they expect, Roman and Paul Heyman and Jimmy Uso and The Rock and possibly Hikulea and Zilla Fatu and Rikishi and any other of the remaining living members of the bloodline that have not been on television. Why? Why do you do this?
Yeah.
She's not a member of the bloodline. I don't care that she's part of the tree. Hey, just remember, Naomi crossed her off of the family tree. So you know what? She's not in the bloodline. I consider Naomi more of a member of the bloodline than I do Nia Jax, but that's because it's Nia Jax.
Right.
But, so is there anything in particular, Cousin Jay, that you would like to start off with? And we cannot start off with Hulk Hogan because, surprise, surprise, he has pretty much kept his mouth shut over the last week.
Yeah, I think somebody got to him and said, hey, brother, you talking is not going to work for me, brother. And I bet it was Sky Daly.
And he'll come up with some other story of who it was and why it was them that told them, and then it'll just be another exaggerated, fictional story that Hulk Hogan can throw in the Rolodex of lies over the years.
I'm still looking forward to the day that he tells the story of when he saved the kid from the car.
Where it's going to morph into he saved a bus full of kids and a box of kittens adopted from the animal shelter.
Well, maybe at this point it'll be a box of kittens that were actually in, what was it, Springfield, Ohio, that were getting ready to be eaten by Haitian immigrants, according to some, and he saved them. He saved them.
That's it's only a matter of time.
Yeah,
only a matter of time. So, where would you like to start there, Cousin Jay? Anything that stands out? I know there's a lot of good stuff.
You know that there were a couple of people who re-signed with the company, or at least very close to re-signing with the company for WWE, that I think deserves at least a little bit of chatter and what have you. But your boy, Sheamus, it sounds like he either has signed or is very close to signing a new multi-year deal, believed to be 3 or 5 years. Nothing has been officially confirmed, but you know, when TKO first took over, it seemed like they were waiting until almost like the last minute. It feels like, hey, maybe now that, you know, they're officially in control. And I think at this point, I think it's now officially a year. I think this is the 1-year anniversary this week, because I thought it was around 9/11. The deal was officially done last year. So they've been in control for about a year. I think they realize what a money juggernaut WWE is at this point. And they're like, all right, yeah, we could sign these people. It's fine. You know, we had Finn Balor re-sign recently. Trying to think of the others. There were several others. But Sheamus, it sounds like, is about to sign on the dotted line. What are your thoughts about the Celtic Warrior?
Some of the wrestlers that also did resign real quick were Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, and of course Nicole's favorite tag team, Los Lotharios. Those are the ones that really stick out for me as being re-signed by WWE. What do you think I'm gonna say? Are you kidding me? When I saw that he signed for 3 to 5 years, if I could do a backflip, I would have done a backflip. I was very happy to see that Sheamus re-signed for another, few years with WWE. He still needs to win the Intercontinental title. I'm still gonna fight on that hill. He needs to be a Grand Slam champion so that he could be the ultimate Grand Slam champion, because he can add Money in the Bank and the Royal Rumble to that equation. And I'm thrilled. I've been a fan of his for a very long time. I don't even think I was a fan of Steve Austin as long as I've been a fan of Sheamus. So that speaks volumes of what kind of, impact that Sheamus has had on me as a wrestling fan. So I was very happy to see him re-sign with WWE. What were your thoughts on Sheamus re-signing with WWE?
I mean, I think this tells me a few things. The health of his neck and spinal cord is good enough that he thinks he could last another few years without causing another several like lifelong challenges. So that's awesome to know that's in his thought process. And I think what Sheamus has seen with Triple H, with how they're, treating Randy Orton, allowing people to have time off to actually do the things, to be, whether it's the son, the husband, the daughter, the father, the mother, they're actually allowing them leniency and leeway to do the things that they want to do. So I think this is great for Sheamus. I think it's great for WWE. I think in the coming years, I mean, I don't see him winning a heavyweight championship again. I could see him still possibly, I wouldn't mind seeing him and Gunther again. I know after the last match they had, Sheamus said, I don't need to do this anymore.
Yes, but if the World Heavyweight Championship is on the line, you really think Sheamus is going to be like, no, I don't want to fight for the world title because it's Gunther?
Not going to work for me, fella. But, I think he will, in the next couple of years, get the Intercontinental Championship, get that elusive thing that has been outside of his grasp. I think he'll do that, and I think he's going to be a great mentor for some of the younger generation coming up. Specifically if you're talking like some of the big guys that are trying to elevate.
Yeah, I agree, and if and when he does win the Intercontinental Championship, it's going to be felt within 10 states of Virginia. The joy emulating from me if and when Sheamus wins the Intercontinental Championship, because it's gonna be fantastic. And whenever it does happen, Cousin Jay, I've said it before, and I'm gonna keep saying it. My Marquee Award for Superstar of the Year and Markout Moment are both reserved for when Sheamus wins the Intercontinental Championship and becomes the ultimate super duper Grand Slam champion.
All right.
So I'm really happy to see him re-sign. I think he does great stuff. Him and Pete Dunne have been working pretty well together. I've been enjoying that. I mean, Pete Dunne's just basically popping up everywhere. He's on Raw. He's on NXT. It's only gonna be a matter of time. He's wrestling on Speed. It's only gonna be a matter of time before he's beating up people randomly on SmackDown. He's just gonna get into freaking Jacob Fatu's face because he's got no fear and he just doesn't care. He's the bruiserweight. But
right.
I think that this is great for WWE to have somebody like Sheamus. I look back at what he did during College Game Day, the first Saturday of the college football season, when he went to Ireland and they were celebrating him in the bar and hanging out with Pat McAfee. And it's like, he's not just a great in-ring performer for them and a well-deserving Hall of Famer once he does hang up his boots and calls it a career, but he's also a great ambassador for WWE. Because if I'm not mistaken, not only has he done like the college football game day predictions thing with McAfee and all those guys, he's also done the narrating of documentaries and video packages. He goes and he's the grand marshal at NASCAR races. He's just a great ambassador of WWE. And for a guy who's been there, I'm pretty sure 15 years at this point.
I believe he started, I might be wrong, but I thought it was 2007-ish. I know that I think he may have debuted in the ECW version, WWE version of ECW. Might have been 2009, but I think he may have been doing stuff in like FCW or something like that prior.
Yeah, he didn't get on TV till 2009, and I still remember the day I first saw him in ECW, and I said, I mean, he's got the size, but man, he's fucking paler than mayonnaise. He's not gonna be a star. And then they just pushed him to the freaking moon when he got to the main roster and he was wrestling on Raw and SmackDown. He was winning championships and feuding with John Cena. I said, okay, so clearly they see something in Sheamus. And in that time period, I've gone from a guy who was like, this guy, I can't see myself. What is this guy's deal? To now I'm like the biggest Sheamus fan on planet Earth. So I'm very happy for him. I think this is a great deal for WWE. And Sheamus was not the only one who got new contracts this week. As it came out earlier this week, the WWE also re-signed Asuka and Shayna Baszler. What are your thoughts?
And I think it happened a little bit ago, but Cedric Alexander also re-signed with the company. And with Cedric, it sounded like it happened sometime earlier this year, like whether it was spring or summer, but it sounded like they re-signed Cedric, and he's doing his part in NXT right now. It's hard to believe that they mentioned like, oh yeah, he started with the Cruiserweight Classic in 2017, and it's like, oh, was it that long ago?
I thought it was 2016 that they did the Cruiserweight Classic.
So either way, 7 or 8 years.
And he was definitely, honestly, of all the people that were in it, he was my favorite. I loved watching Cedric Alexander work. And I remember in his second round match when he lost, I think it was Kota Ibushi, how I pulled that one out of my ass, I have no idea. But in that second round match, he lost the match, and the fans were just they were just loving that dude. And he was going backstage, and as he's standing on the ramp, Triple H's music hits, and he hugs Cedric Alexander, raises his hand, and that dude's been there in WWE ever since. I've enjoyed Cedric Alexander and what he has brought to the WWE, and I'm very happy that he re-signed there. He's a guy who's busted his ass on the indies to get to where he was. Hell, I remember he lost 20 pounds just to be in the Cruiserweight Classic, and now he's getting rewarded, and he's still with WWE, and I'm very happy for him. What are your thoughts on Asuka?
A guy like Cedric. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Continue.
No, I was just going to say, with a guy like Cedric, I think as far as achievements, maybe if he went to another company, whether it's TNA or AEW, I think he could have probably gotten higher up on the card. But clearly he's completely content with where he is, the respect he's been given, and the money he's getting paid. So good on him. And he'll keep fighting, and I think he realizes that he's at the place where they book the most authentically of all, at least at the moment.
Yes, comparatively speaking to what AEW is doing. I'm not counting that as an insult. I am still alive without saying anything negative about AEW.
Yeah.
But
what was that post this week about Miro? And Miro, wasn't he like pimping some sort of product?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of.
Tim might have sent it to me, but I was just like, I would like to see Miro come back to WWE and do something.
Do something!
We'll see. But for me, them re-signing Asuka, you know me. I love me some Asuka. I think she is just, ever since she's come to the company, been like a breath of fresh air. She was not something that you saw every day. Nothing about Asuka is garden variety. And she is so expressive. It does not matter that she doesn't speak English very well. You know exactly what she's saying and exactly what she means. So I'm glad they got Asuka for even longer. I mean, before she signed with WWE, she was considering like stopping wrestling altogether. And here we are. Again, I think she's about 8 years into being in WWE, and she signs an extension. And outside of like injuries lately, I mean, just thinking about the Damage Control storyline that they did for basically once Bayley made Damage Control, Asuka getting integrated into that, and great storytelling, and Asuka being tough as nails, fighting through injury to get to WrestleMania this year.
Yep.
I love Asuka.
It was a great signing by WWE. She's one of the few in the women's division that they locked up. Hey, I'm not going to complain because, I mean, outside of maybe Rhea Ripley, and I'll even say Charlotte Flair, is there a bigger star than Asuka for total body of work in the time period that they've been in WWE? This is not a slight on Bianca
I would say
Belair.
Bayley is about the same level.
Okay, fair. But I think it was a great move. She's one of the few that kind of survived going from NXT to the main roster. Yes, it kind of sucked when she was undefeated, and then Charlotte had to end the streak because, you know, Vince McMahon loves him some Charlotte Flair. But she has been a multiple-time champion. She has been a multiple-time tag team champion. She's won Money in the Bank. She won the Royal Rumble. Asuka has had a very, very successful career in WWE. And this is too good of a deal to pass up. And you know what? I'm sorry. I have to say the same thing with Shayna Baszler. I believe that Shayna Baszler re-signing with WWE, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, Cousin Jay. After all these years we've been doing this podcast, all the things that I've said about Shayna Baszler, I'm going to say this. I am actually glad that they re-signed Shayna Baszler. She's not nearly as god-awful on the microphone as she used to be, you know, when she was first down in NXT, where she just didn't sound believable, and it was just awful, and it was like, oh my God, she needs a mouthpiece and all that stuff. Now she's not terrible on the mic.
I mean, she literally has a mouthpiece.
Right, exactly. But honestly, that her in-ring ability was never in question, because even though she made the transition from UFC to WWE, she makes it look good. She put in the work. She's one of the safest people to work with in the ring. They love putting people in the ring with Shayna Baszler because it looks so real, but she keeps her opponent safe. And I cannot express to everyone how important that is to me to hear that, especially from somebody with a combat sports background like Shayna Baszler has. So them bringing her back and re-signing her, I was actually very happy to see that, because she's busted her ass and she's been there for a while. And the most important thing, and I cannot stress this enough, Shayna Baszler is the one that ended Ronda Rousey's WWE career.
Yeah. So Chris Brown's saying he believes that Shayna is the female version of Ken Shamrock. I can kind of get with that. She wasn't. I don't think she's reached the notoriety that Ken did, certainly in the Octagon. I don't think she's quite there in the ring, but I could get with that a little bit. Chris Brown also saying that he believes it was March 2008 with Sheamus. Okay. And Tim thinks that Sheamus, Becky Lynch, and Finn Balor started at the same time. Chris Brown also wants them to give Cedric Alexander more mic time.
I'd be happy with just more ring time from Cedric Alexander. I enjoy his matches. He's had some pretty incredible matches. He was one of the few that I actually enjoyed watching when they had the Cruiserweight division. It was such, or 205 Live, I'm sorry. Right. That's what it was.
And then Chris Brown also saying Rusev versus Breaker or Bronson Reed would be a fun match. It would. And then Tim talks about the attempted murder on AEW TV this week.
Oh, don't worry. I'm definitely going to be mentioning that at some point during the podcast.
Okay.
A very specific portion of the podcast is getting that tonight.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Yeah. Stupid idiots. I fucking cannot believe that shit. That doesn't count. That was me mumbling under my voice. That does not count.
I mean, when we get into that full-throated, it's like you do remember that, like, during the lead up to Rock Hogan at WrestleMania 18, I mean, Hogan attempted murder the Rock, and the fans were still cheering Hogan.
Unfortunately, Cousin Jay, I don't remember the build-up to WrestleMania 18, because that was a year prior. I felt betrayed as a wrestling fan and had my intelligence questioned to the point that here we are 23 years later, and I am now referring to myself as the Brainless one, because that's what happens when your mental state goes right down the shitter, because the ultimate anti-authority figure joining forces with the authority just left such a bad taste in my mouth, I couldn't even watch this shit anymore.
Was it like drinking Malort?
No. That's an evil I wouldn't wish upon anybody, Ricky Bobby.
Okay. I was just wondering how bad of a taste.
And it's like, I get it. Like, people are like, well, you know, in the Attitude Era, you know, the Big Show, you know, they hung the Boss Man.
They did hang the Boss Man.
In the Hell in a Cell.
That was after, I mean, was that after he fed Al Snow pepper?
It's hard to remember because all of that stuff, like it was like a year span where he dragged the Big Show's dad's casket, fed Al Snow his dog, and then the Undertaker hung him inside Hell in a Cell.
Logan, hello. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate.
What's up, Logan?
Make sure you smash that subscribe button at the YouTubes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't remember that, but like it was just so bad and so. The problem is that AEW continues to do this stupid stuff each and every time. It's like, didn't they have another unprotected chair shot in that pay-per-view too?
Yeah, Swerve ended up taking an unprotected chair shot to the head, and I mean, his response to it was like, "Hey, it was an unsanctioned match. I mean, what were you expecting?" Certainly not an unprotected chair shot, but
you know what it is, Cousin Jay, and I'm telling you now, I've been saying this, I've said it before, I'll continue to say this, and I'm pretty sure I said this on the podcast. Eventually, something bad is going to happen in AEW where somebody ends up as a potato or they're going to end up Rick. Adios. And it's not going to be a good look because eventually at some point, Shad Khan eventually is going to have to get his head out of his ass and realize that the money that he is giving his son is just a bad investment and he's going to pull the plug.
The thing about that, though, I mean, Tony, after All Out, said that the Warner Brothers, he's like, yeah, the deal's like 90% done. And it sounds like he's negotiating with Fox to do some sort of show. And there are some rumors that maybe that's a little bit of why the deal with Warner Brothers hasn't been finalized. But if we're to believe some of the things that have been reported, it sounds like AEW is going to get like double the amount for the TV rights deal. Yeah, there's a little bit more involved than their current deal, but that'll keep Shad Khan happy.
There's many issues, and I wish I'd done this as a top 10 list. The top 10 reasons why AEW to Fox would be a bad move for Fox. But I mean, let's be serious. Between the fact that they cuss in the ring, the Fox people, black out stuff that they don't want people to see or hear. So that means nothing that Jon Moxley does is going to be shown on television on Fox. And these unannounced freaking overages on freaking Dynamite, you think they're going to get away with that? 10 o'clock's going to roll by. You, of all people, should know when the news starts at 10, the news starts at 10.
Yeah.
So there's so many different reasons, but it's silly. It is silly. You really think that does Tony Khan really think that if he moves any of his shows to the Fox channel, that it's going to improve ratings? Does he really think that? So people are going to get. I don't even know what the show is anymore that comes on before SmackDown. Is it Wheel of Fortune, or is that ABC or NBC?
Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy are syndicated shows, so it could be absolutely anything. It really depends on what television market you're coming from. When you're talking TBS, that is like, for them, like they are a nationwide syndicator, or they're a national television station, and they do a bunch of television syndication. So they're in control of what everybody sees. Whereas if you're watching in our area, Fox 43, what is on from 7:30 to 8 is different here versus what you would see in Richmond versus what you would see at Fox 61 in Connecticut.
On the Connecticut.
Yeah. So it depends on the network. It depends on a bunch of things like that. I don't think that any of the main AEW shows would end up on Fox. I think this is specifically for the Shockwave show, and I would guess it is not a weeknight thing. I think it's going to be a weekend thing, and I think it's going to be something they like pre-tape at one of their.
So let me get this straight. The wrestling promotion that already has a Wednesday show Dynamite, a Friday show in Rampage, a Saturday show in Collision, and Ring of Honor on Thursdays. 4 different wrestling shows, all booked by the same dude who not only is in charge of creative, but is also in charge of the company, who has also got his head up a Jaguar's ass, who does shit with the freaking soccer club in Europe, and he wants a 5th show? Is it
And I don't think it has anything to do with ratings. I think it has everything to do with money, and that is exactly why we have been getting Monday Night Raw for 3 hours for the last 12 years. Money. Not quality of show, not ratings, because the ratings went down once they went to 3 hours, but Vince's like, hey, pal, they're giving me more money. It's all money.
Like I said before, I know I've said this on the podcast before, when they used to have Raw for 2 hours and they made the special shows 3 hours long, so when they would do the draft, when they would have the legends, if they celebrated 10, 15, 20 years of Monday Night Raw, when those shows were 3 hours, those were fun. I actually used to look forward to those 3-hour shows that they had each and every time they had them, because they were such a rarity, and it was an extra hour, and it was the draft. The draft was always fun to watch. The draft has sucked the last few years. Let's be serious. When it used to be, honest to goodness, the best for the draft that they've ever done was never when they were like, I'm selecting this person or I'm selecting this person. It was when they used to do the thing where they had Monday Night Raw, a superstar from Raw, go up against a superstar from SmackDown, and the wrestler that won that show would get the draft pick, and they would randomly select a wrestler. I love that concept. And that's why those 3-hour Raws were great. Or when they would bring out the legends to celebrate whatever. Or they were doing the 25th anniversary.
Hulk Hogan's birthday party.
Hulk Hogan's birthday party. Where party's over, Grandpa. That was great for the 3-hour shows. Clearly, Vince McMahon had the same idea about doing a 3-hour Monday Night Raw like he did about having writers for wrestling, because for some weird reason, a shit ton of people would tune into Friends every single week. Literally, the only show in the history of television I have never laughed once for on any episodes I watched. And yes, I had to watch episodes. I have an older sister. Chandler Bing was funny as shit, though. I will say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you did mention that Raw was 3 hours. What does this mean for Monday Night Raw, since you mentioned it?
Coming in October, Monday Night Raw is going back to 2 hours. 2 hours. I know in the past year you've talked about how much you've enjoyed Monday Night Raw, and that they really upped their game. 3 hours of wrestling on Monday night every week is still a lot to take in. We still got, I mean, if you're watching everything pro wrestling during the week, there's something for you, like, I think every day except for Sunday. And even on Sunday, you could probably find something somewhere. So there's plenty of wrestling. There's a bunch of different varieties of it for all the different people out there, whatever style they like. But, you know, I'm glad it is down to 2 hours.
Me too.
You don't need it. They've got so many performers. And initially when they went to 3 hours, the hope was that they would be able to showcase some of the lesser seen performers. But no, what did we end up with? 25-minute long promos to start the damn show. Again, the last couple of years have gotten way better. Way better. I mean, but going back to when Olive Garden waiter Corbin was the general manager of Raw. What did Seth Franklin Rollins say?
Monday Night Raw has sucked.
And that was very true for most of the decade of the 2010s.
There was a point in time, Jay, where the only thing I ever tuned into Monday Night Raw for was the Wyatt family. And that was when they first came up, and probably the first 2 years of their run in WWE. Bray Wyatt, Luke Harper, and Captain Wedgie himself were my favorite thing to watch on TV every single week for WWE television. I enjoyed the heck out of them. They were great to watch. They were great television. And believe me, even though I've been saying it, that the wrestling for Monday Night Raw has gotten a lot better, mainly because of production. I don't even know how the hell that happened, but production has gotten a million times better over the last year, and I can't put my finger on it. You know, I just can't. I can't do it. I can't figure out how it went down. Bucky Beaver, the fuck is gone.
Yeah.
But it's just, again, I'm not against it. I'm just curious to see like what they do. And there was a period of time, a long period of time, that if I heard John Cena's music hit to start Monday Night Raw, I would cringe. I would mosey my way downstairs, and I would have a cigarette, and I would take the longest time to smoke that cigarette and then get back into my house because I knew that at least half of the promo was going to be over.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they're moving to 2 hours. It's going to be interesting to see where they go going forward once they move to Netflix starting in January. If that's going to be the continuing trend where they're going to stay 2 hours, or if they're going to go back to 3 hours on Netflix.
So we got a couple people in chat saying on Netflix they're planning on going back to 3 hours. I do have a couple of questions with that. Where will they be airing commercials, or are they going to try to do 3 hours straight as if it were like a pay-per-view? Because the thing with pay-per-views, you get extended entrances, you get packages, hype packages. You're not going to probably be able to pull that off every week because that requires an awful lot of production. So maybe some of the folks that not necessarily have gotten their entrances shown on TV, maybe they'll actually get shown.
Oh, yes, because that's what I need to see. Katana Chance and Caden Carter, actually have an entrance for wrestling. My favorite was they did it. Wasn't it for like the there was something recently that they had qualifying matches for where Carmelo Hayes and somebody else on SmackDown both won their matches without even getting an entrance. I want to say it was Money in the Bank because I'm pretty sure Carmelo Hayes, yeah, he was, because him and Andrade were fucking amazing in that match. And they've been killing it in this rivalry they've been having. And I'm glad that they're kind of doing like whoever's going to win the Carmelo Hayes and Andrade feud is going to be the one that goes up against L.A. Knight. Yeah. But
Andrade, a patch wearer, eye patch wearer.
I don't think, was he one of the eye patchers from last week? I don't think
he was one of the eye patchers.
No, he was not. I didn't have him on there.
He was on my list.
Oh, he was on your list. I was still impressed. I actually had Scotty Riggs. That is now 2 weeks in a row that I've mentioned Scotty Riggs on this podcast after not mentioning him for 372 previous episodes.
So, we've got the debut of SmackDown tonight. We've got a shortened Monday Night Raw coming shortly. We had the official debut. I think it was the season debut of Raw this week. But in the coming weeks, we are going to have the debut of NXT on the CW. And Logan in the chat mentioned that he believes one of some of the folks that they will debut there will be the Motor City Machine Guns. What say you to that rumor?
Strap it to my veins, baby. Give me the Motor City Machine Guns. I've heard the same rumors that that's when it's going to happen, that they wanted to save it for when they do their debut on the CW, and that's going to be a stacked show. They're going to have CM Punk on there. Julia is going to be fighting Roxanne Perez for the NXT Women's Championship. The Miz is doing Miz TV, and I swear to you, if they do Miz TV down at NXT and Joe Hendry is not the guest on Miz TV, that is an absolute fail. But it has also been reported that WWE is trying everything in their power to get a million views, like a ratings for that is going to be 1 million. They want 1 million people to tune into that debut. I'm going to be tuning in. I tune into NXT every single week. I enjoy the heck out of NXT. It is great television. They have a lot of good young talent down there that are going to make an impact. If nobody knows about Obafemi, do yourself a favor and tune into NXT and watch this dude work. He's only been in it for a couple of years, and wow, he is so good. Oh my! It didn't take long for the Brainless one to become a fan of Obafemi, and I'm excited for the Motor City Machine Guns. I think them coming to WWE is going to be great. I'm curious to see when the Lucha Brothers will finally make their debut in WWE. And then we're going to have all these tag teams, and maybe, just maybe, Triple H can build a tag team division in WWE, which would be a lot of fun to see because, as you know, I've been a huge fan of tag team wrestling for a very long time. I love tag team wrestling and tournaments and battle royals. Those are and squash matches. Those are my 4 favorite things in wrestling. And I'm excited for this. Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley are 2 very, very good, long-standing veterans in the wrestling industry. I am excited to see them actually get an opportunity to showcase themselves in WWE. It's going to be a lot of fun watching them. I cannot wait. What are your thoughts?
Any Motor City Machine Guns we could get in WWE, whether it's NXT, SmackDown, or Raw, I think it's great. Both of those guys are in their I think early 40s at this point, so they got some mileage on them, but they have some mileage left. That they were one of my favorite teams to watch in TNA back in the day. You know, when they would have their feuds with, whether it was Generation Me, the Hardy Boys. I know you don't like them. Get over it. Those matches were great.
Good and terrible.
And I think they had stuff against LAX. They had stuff against Beer Money. A lot of just awesome tag matches that they had.
And I want to say Chris Sabin's the one person who actually wrestled for TNA, WWE, and AEW in the same year, or New Japan or something like that in the same year. Because he showed up to wrestle, I think, in one of the Dusty Rhodes Classics a couple years ago and team up with Mr. Jacket Time himself, Kushida. But I'm excited for them. I've been following them for a very long time. There was a point in time where there wasn't a lot to be, excited about watching TNA outside of Abyss and AJ Styles and Eric Young and Samoa Joe. But the Motor City Machine Gun are just a fun tag team to watch.
Yeah. Steve Chambers saying that he wants to see the Machine Guns against the Rascals.
Please. I need it.
Literally, that's what he said.
I need
it. Chris Brown talking about Motor City Machine Guns versus 8 and 8s was fun as shit to watch, and I quote. So another thing that's happening is allegedly the return to NBC and BC of Saturday night's main event. On top of that, Hall of Fame wrestler, commentator, Navy SEAL, former governor, conspiracy theorist, Jesse the Body Ventura returning to his roots. And it sounds like he is going to be on commentary. I don't know if it's going to be the whole thing or if it's just going to be a match, but they're bringing the body back for commentary. When I saw that, not only did the middle-aged me smile, the 11-year-old me smiled about that. I hope he does commentary with what's his name? Karrion Kross while Karrion Kross is doing his Jesse the Body impression.
See, they ruined it for the Brainless one. When I was saying that they should do for a broadcast team and for NFL was when they should have done John Madden, Brett Favre, and Frank Caliendo dressed up as John Madden doing John Madden in the booth. Just because John Madden and Frank Caliendo would just say Brett Favre 8 bajillion times. I would be on board with it just because Karrion Kross may actually have the best impression of Jesse Ventura I've ever heard. I tried it. I can't do it. Will Sasso's is also really good. But man, Karrion Kross, like if I closed my eyes and Karrion Kross did, I wouldn't know it was Karrion Kross. I would think it was the body. And if you say you were excited, I was also very excited because I too was a huge fan of Jesse Ventura when I first got into professional wrestling as a fan. I always talk about when we say that those moments where wrestlers, that like with wrestlers, referees, announcers, you always have that signature moment. For me, that always sticks out for me with Jesse Ventura, why I always appreciated him as a color analyst was when Dino Bravo was doing the weight bench. I think it was for Saturday Night Main Event, if I'm not mistaken.
I thought it was Royal Rumble, but I could be wrong.
It could have been the Royal Rumble. I know it happened, one of those things, and he was over there, and he was with Dino Bravo, and I want to say Jimmy Hart was over there with him. And anybody who says a bad thing about Jimmy Hart, you have a problem with me, by the way. But Jesse getting on the microphone and saying, "Why are you booing this man? You may not like what he does, but you gotta respect him for what he's doing. This is incredible. The strength that he is showcasing here." And I always appreciated Jesse Ventura for doing stuff like that. He was killing it with Gorilla Monsoon, and I want to say, wasn't it Elvira during WrestleMania 2's main event when it was Hogan versus Bundy? I want to say Elvira was in the booth with them. But Jesse Ventura calling matches once again, like you said, not only am I now happy about it, but there's a 5-6-year-old brainless one around there that's also smiling to hear that Jesse Ventura's voice is going to be heard again on a wrestling commentary.
Yeah, so Steve Chambers thinks that it would be good to put Michael Cole, Pat McAfee, and Ventura together for Saturday night's main event. And he wants Ventura to be like, heel Ventura doing the thing. Also bringing up the first SummerSlam main event where the body was the referee, the special enforcer for the Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks.
Mega Bucks.
Yeah. That was Andre the Giant with $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase.
Duh. I'm sorry. I had a brainless moment. I apologize.
And the Mega Powers was Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man.
Yes. I know who the Mega Powers are, Cousin Jay. I know that it was one of the greatest stories ever told was when the Mega Powers kind of fell apart and then led to the main event of WrestleMania 5 where Hulk Hogan bled like a stuffed pig
in front of profusely, as the body said.
He was the king of profusely too, by the way. Him and Gorilla. And Gorilla was always the king of those one-liners and zingers. And
Gorilla was for many years. It was a Pearl Harbor job. Would you be serious?
It is a miscarriage of justice. Yes, him and Heenan were just gold, but it doesn't take away like him and Ventura. Gorilla Monsoon was just one of those guys that whoever he worked with, he could work with, and it's just a testament of what he meant as a color or as a play-by-play guy, considering he started off as a professional wrestler and as a heel professional wrestler, one of the most nefarious heels of all time too. And to this day, the greatest gimmick in wrestling history. Because as intimidating as a big red machine and a dead man walking around tombstoning people where he can't get killed, no gimmick in the history of wrestling is ever going to top a monsoon of gorillas.
Will you stop?
Oh, I get a kick out of it every single time. I just love it because I will say this about wrestling this week. There has been a lot of stuff. This is the third day in a row I laughed my ass off because of something that happened in professional wrestling. I'm going to get into that later on in the podcast as well because it's definitely getting brought up at some. I'm sorry. Somebody did something this week that has never happened. It's going to lead to something that has never happened in the 8+ years of this podcast, of the 374 and counting episodes of this podcast. Somebody might actually get inducted into our Hall of Fame for a second time, and I think it's back-to-back years too. I am sorry that he's going to clean house, Cousin Jay. I'm telling you, he's clean. He's going to win more awards for the Marquee Awards this year than Roman Reigns has over the last 8 years, which will be his 9th Marquee Awards, where he's going to clean house once again unless he shaves his head between now and the Marquee Awards.
Yep.
But I'm really happy to see Jesse Ventura get back into WWE. A lot of people were curious to see what was going to happen with him when he made that appearance at Monday Night Raw. What does this mean? Does this mean we're going to get finally some Jesse Ventura action figures? I'll go get a Jesse Ventura action figure. Absolutely. Does this mean he's going to be doing voiceover work for documentaries and stuff like that? I can see that happening too. But the fact that he's going to come back and do commentary for Saturday night's main event, do you know how many wrestling fans that are our age that were probably just as giddy as we were when we found out that was going to be what happened? I was very happy to hear that. I always enjoyed Jesse Ventura. I'm glad that we're going to get him. And I think that a 3-man booth for that, I don't even know if it's an hour show or not, but if they do a 3-man booth, I think that would be beneficial for them because it's less burden on Jesse, especially because he's up there in age to have to talk. And
back in what was it, 2010, he did the one match with Vince, and it sounded like he didn't miss a step, miss a beat, anything. He just locked back in, and I'm hoping we'll get the same thing because, quite honestly, at that point he had been out of wrestling for 15-ish years because he had his stint in WCW. And then I think he was off commentary for a while. He went to WWE to get inducted in the Hall of Fame. But for the most part, he's been missing. But Steve in the chat is thinking that they're going to be in Minnesota for Saturday night's main event. That makes an awful lot of sense.
I
get the body in his home state.
If they're going to do Saturday night main event, if it's going to happen sometime before the end of college football season, in the great words of Del Griffith, you have a better chance of picking up sticks with your butt cheeks than we do of seeing Pat McAfee calling Saturday night main event. Unfortunately, because he's got those commitments tied up with ESPN with the college game day stuff. I think more likely than not we'll see him with Wade Barrett. And Wade Barrett is so good. He really is so good. And him and Tessitore are going to be a really good combo because Wade Barrett knows the industry. He has been doing a great job in commentary. He was doing a great job in commentary at NWA before they kind of got shut down by COVID. And Dave LaGreca, I think it was. Or I'm probably getting Dave. No, that's the guy from Busted Open. Dave, it was one of those guys, whatever executive for NWA that got called out in that Me Too bullshit. But I think Wade Barrett should be a part of it because he has done an excellent job. Really has.
The only thing I would be leery of is he and Ventura would be taking almost the same lane, so Wade would have to skirt a little bit. So
I think Wade Barrett has definitely got it. If this is a situation, all right, Wade, we know that you like to be the heel commentary. We're going to need you kind of be neutral. Unless neutral as he could stay, down the line in the middle. But with, when Corey Graves was the heel color analyst and he would sit there and he would talk up Nakamura, because who doesn't talk up Nakamura? So it could be a situation like that where he's right down the middle, but like, oh, Drew's out there. Oh yeah, you could definitely pander to Drew, is what I'm saying. I would be okay with that.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll find out. Chris Brown, again, Corey Graves, I think, kind of somewhat similar ilk to Ventura. I would consider Graves like a cross between Heenan and Ventura. So, I mean, I guess if they utilize that as something to like pile on Michael Cole or pile on Joe Tessitore, I think it would work better with Michael Cole to pile on to him, just because he's been there so long, he's so beloved that like it'll be a thing like that. But
hey, just remember, it could always be worse. They could bring in Booker T. And this is coming from a Booker T fan. I love Booker T. Always happy whenever I always pop every time his music hits. But I'm sorry.
And so with Tessitore, I have to say that I think he sounds almost like a cross between Michael Cole and Mauro Ronaldo when he's announcing. Not quite as hyped up as Mauro Ronaldo, but some of his kind of inflections are similar. But he also has some things that are kind of similar to Michael Cole. And those aren't bad traits to have now that Cole's been freed from Vince.
And don't worry, wrestling fans, if the NFL keeps booking their Monday Night Football games the way they have, last week they put the goddamn Jets on. I think this week the Philadelphia She-Gulls are going to be the team that's playing on Monday Night Football. So, of course, when they put the shitty teams that the Brainless one hates, I am definitely tuning into Monday Night Raw. So, like when they show the Eagles or the Cowboys or the Jets or, at this point, the New York Giants, I'm definitely not going to be tuning into Monday Night Football. I'm going to be watching Monday Night Raw. And I get subjected this week because the Giants are going to be on national television on Fox on Sunday. So it's
that is so good. How many touchdowns does Danny Dimes throw to his teammates, and how many to the other team? Is it going to be like? Is he going to end up with 3 touchdowns, 2 to the other team, 1 to, whatever nameless receiver?
He's going to shit his pants live on national television, and I'm going to throw my phone like I almost did the night he got drafted.
Will the Giants win a game this year?
Yes.
Danny Dimes is the quarterback.
No, they're not going to win with Danny Dimes as the quarterback. Once Tommy Cutlets gets in there, he's going to resurrect this season. I mean, if they had benched Danny Dimes and they started, Tommy DeVito, the Giants would finish the season 16-1. And I know Timmy agrees with that. I'm surprised Timmy's not even chiming in right now because it's his
he's chiming in right now. He says Jones is playing the Commanders. He's going to look like Joe Montana.
I just love the fact that I did a fantasy football draft in Yahoo like 2 months ago, and the team that I played against on Sunday drafted nothing but Washington Commanders. And it's funny, too, because somebody else in a different league, I didn't know this was a thing, but somebody else in a different league did the same thing with Tampa Bay Buccaneers players and actually won their fantasy football game. I went up against the guy who drafted nothing but Washington Commanders. Timmy, I didn't know that you were in my league. And I ended up crushing the dude by nearly 60 points. If I had known that, I would have drafted all Ravens because I had already drafted Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson at that point. Sorry. But yeah, it's gonna be a long, miserable year once again for me, and it sucks that it's another year once again where I don't smoke cigarettes and I don't drink alcohol. So I don't really have too many outlets to get away from the abomination that is the New York Football Giants.
Brownies.
And I love the fact that they lost that game by 3 touchdowns on Sunday when they were dressed up like I did for my fourth grade yearbook picture.
You look like the Montreal Canadiens?
Well, it looked like they were wearing khakis and a blue and red striped polo shirt. So, yeah, that's exactly what I wore for my 3rd or 4th grade picture day. And they played like a bunch of 4th graders, too.
Hey, my team won, but every week I know it's going to be like watching paint dry.
You guys are winning this week, too. I'm telling you right now.
they play the least exciting brand of football. They have to win like 16-9 every week if they're going to win. I mean, the Patriots have had good D the last several years. They have like nothing on offense. They've got Henry, our tight end. And that's about it.
Don't they have like Kevin Natural Born Killers? Isn't that his name?
Something like that. We had Zeke last year, man.
Now he's back in Dallas and shit.
Man. And they're going all the way. Them boys going all the way, man.
It's sad because
until the second weekend of the playoffs.
It's sad when one of the teams I actually want to see win a Super Bowl is the New England Patriots, only because of the fact that I know for a fact that their head coach was once upon a time a high school football teammate of a dude I used to know that fucked donkeys.
Yeah.
So it makes me happy. And he used to play against, it was either he was teammates or he played against Gerard Mayo, or he was teammates or played against Tyrod Taylor. It's one of those two.
Okay.
But they're both from Hampton. Both I know Tyrod's from Hampton, and I know that's where fucking the dude for the Patriots is.
Yeah.
But they're winning.
Gerard Mayo.
Cousin Jay, I'm calling it right now. They're winning on Sunday.
Seattle
right. Coming in from the state of Washington on the road to play a 1:00 game on the East Coast is not a good thing that happens for West Coast teams. The Patriots defense definitely played a lot better than everybody expected. They were going to against Cincinnati on Sunday. If they play that way against Seattle, they're going to beat the Seahawks.
Well, I mean, Homelander Burrow it was too much. You know, when our former president talked about cats getting murdered, that was it. Cats in Ohio getting murdered.
Sad.
Well, I'm going to pivot to a couple of cases of good news that came out this week.
I like it.
Mike Rome, WWE announcer, announced that he has become a dad. He welcomed a baby boy. Mike Rome, good for you. I think he's always been a really good announcer. And again, good for him. Congratulations to him. And hope that, happy and healthy, and good luck sleeping the next, several months. Yeah. And Riddick Moss and Tennille Dashwood are expecting. I didn't know they were a couple, but
I did.
They ended up posting, I think they did it live on Instagram, where they did a pregnancy test and they looked down and going, oh, all right. So good for them.
Yes, good for Mad Cat Moss.
Yeah.
A guy I predicted was going to lose his job, just like predicted Nia Jax was going to blow out both her ACLs.
Hey, just because you're a bad wrestler doesn't mean that you should have a bad lot in life. Good for him. Good for her.
Yes, and now that she's a mom, she can't be going in shoplifting at Walmart in Hartford on Flatbush Avenue.
My mom.
My mom. Just remember, everyone, there's 3 guarantees in life: death, taxes, and nothing good comes out of the state of Connecticut.
Yeah.
Or nothing good happens in the state of Connecticut, I should say.
Come on. I mean, Milli Vanilli got caught. I mean, that's good.
Dave Chappelle had a mental breakdown in Hartford. Tennille Dashwood, Emma, got arrested for shoplifting in Hartford. Milli Vanilli got caught lip singing in Bristol, Connecticut.
Don't blame it on the rain. Blame it on Bristol.
They had a sports franchise, and the state of Connecticut couldn't support them because they only got 982 people to show up for every home game at the old Hartford Civic Center for the team with the greatest fight song in the history of all sports, in the history of all time universe.
Yes.
Brass Bonanza owns every other song. It's not even just the greatest fight song. It's the greatest song ever made, Brass Bonanza. Fight me, anybody. Come on, fight me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, yeah, good for both Riddick Moss and Emma, and also for Mike Rome for, Mike Rome introducing a new son into his life, and, of course, Tenille Dashwood and Madcap Moss for the fact that they are expecting a child.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do I have any good news stuff like that? Really the only good news thing I have is Julia, the top free agent pickup from WWE that they brought in from Japan, made her debut on NXT this past week, going up against Chelsea Green, and in no surprise, she was victorious. She's fun to watch. I can tell you just after one match that I'm going to enjoy watching her work in WWE. She's got a lot of expectations. I think they're all well deserved. She's a stud. I'm telling you, she's a stud. The fact that she's already fit in and she looks really good and crisp and all this stuff, considering she had to kind of mold to the whole WWE kind of way of working. She looked good, and I'm excited to see what the future brings for her. And I can't wait until Stephanie McCoy gets there. Oh my God, the WWE Women's Division is going to be disgusting. Again, strap everything to my veins. All the good women's wrestling, all the good tag team wrestling. Give me all of it. I want to overdose on great wrestling because that's what it's all about. Because you're not going to get it from the competition from WWE.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was happy to see that Julia. I hate the way she spells it. But yeah, I was glad to see that. And also, on Monday Night Raw, we had the return of a person who I have a great amount of respect for, the Hitman Bret Hart. In Calgary. Was so happy to see him. My only gripe that I had was, why wasn't it with Drew? Everybody and their brother knows that CM Punk is just as obsessed with Bret the Hitman Hart that we are with Curtis Axel. It would have made a lot of sense for Drew to go out there and confront the Hitman. I'm not going to take anything away from it because even though it was Gunther that was the one that ended up confronting the Hitman, there was two parts of that whole thing that I really loved. Number one was the fact that Gunther said that the Hitman was his second favorite wrestler of all time and that his favorite wrestler of all time was Goldberg. I popped for that. That was a great comment. But when Sami Zayn did come out in Calgary, he was wearing a Johnny Gaudreau Calgary Flames jersey. Johnny Gaudreau, known as Johnny Hockey, died very unfortunately a couple of weeks ago from a drunken idiot trying to get around some cars that he didn't like, and he hit him and his brother that were on bicycles. Horrible, horrible situation happened. I hope that dude rots and burns in hell next to Chris Benoit. But I thought that was a nice touch. I'm talking about the driver. I'm not talking about Johnny Gaudreau, people. I'm sorry. Let me clarify that. I thought that was a great touch. Sami Zayn being Canadian, also a huge hockey fan. I thought that was great. That was kind of like that Mick Foley cheap pop. But in that situation, I thought it was a great way for him to show respect for Johnny Gaudreau after what had happened to him. But it was just great to see the Hitman on Monday Night Raw. Thoughts?
I agree that it would have made more sense to have it with CM Punk to maybe help ignite that feud even more. But the thing is that has already been like the greatest rivalry of the year. In the first 6.5 months of it, they couldn't do anything. Like, it was just talking in verbal barbs with the occasional times when they would get physical, but that was because of the limitations because of Punk's injury. They didn't need anything extra. They just beat the hell out of each other, and people are already invested. Gunther is a new world heavyweight champion. Brett always took so much pride in being the champion for the company. If you want to give somebody a rub and get them up to that next level, Zayn and Gunther could use that rub more than Drew and Punk, even though storyline wise and just Punk's love for Brad. I mean, there was a match he had in AEW which was more or less like a replay of I want to say it was one of Brett and Owen. I think one of their matches.
I think,
like,
yeah.
I mean, that's how much Punk is obsessed with Brett. Again, it would make sense. I could understand why WWE went that route, and Gunther's line about Goldberg. I know Tim was probably watching this thing and jumped out of his chair like, yes, salty Brett, and he wanted to see,
Salty Brett is what's best for this world. I aspire to be as salty and as much like the Hitman as the Hitman is, because that's what I aspire to be like, just as salty as him. And if anybody has sodium levels as close to the Hitman, it is the Brainless one.
I mean, I can imagine you doing a post like Brett did a couple of weeks ago. I hope everybody has a great day, except for Bill Goldberg.
I'm surprised.
I hope everybody has a great day, except for Kevin Owens.
No.
Except for Nia Jax.
No.
Except for the Bucks.
Yes, thank you. Those three, yes. Kevin Owens, no. I don't want Kevin Owens to have a bad day. I just want Kevin Owens to walk into catering every Friday and find out there's no cupcakes. That would just devastate the fuck out of Kevin Owens. Which is funny because there was a point where I actually... Oh, no, there is. There is. I'm glad you mentioned it because it's going to be on something later on in the podcast. And it has to do with Kevin Owens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, excuse moi.
Yeah.
That was Bret Hart. We did mention that they're going to be making some changes to WWE with Monday Night Raw going to 2 hours. With the contracts that are getting negotiated. There was something else that came out this week from the TKO Withholdings Group in regards to WWE. So, for decades, WWE would be traveling 300 days out of the year, unless you were Hulk Hogan, who somehow, some way, miraculously wrestled 400 days in a single year. And even for clarity, when they were like, did you mean 400 times in a year? No, brother, I wrestled 400 days, brother. Because, yes, of course you would, Hulk Hogan, because you partied with John Belushi, even though he was dead. But we're not going to get into that. They dropped it down this year in 2024 to 250 live events. It is now being reported that they are going to move to even less live events. And they're going to be doing less house shows, as we will now be getting 200 live events a year. They said that it's for cost purposes because they all realize that, with running those house shows, they don't make any money off of it, but because they still have to bring all the stuff they do. And it's just, the ticket sales, and it's not a lot of great merchandise and all that stuff. They said between that and the fact that WWE is as successful as it is, and they feel like they don't need to go to all these different areas to kind of expand their horizons, so they're going to do it for 50 less dates this year. What are your thoughts on WWE lowering the schedule to 200 days a year, starting in 2025?
Good. I think, and it's not just the idea of the house shows not gaining money. I think there's something to be said to having those house shows and developing a fan base. It's long-term thinking as far as like, hey, we're going to hit this market. Yeah, we don't do Monday Night Raw here, but we're creating fans of the future who may be coming to Royal Rumbles, who may be coming to WrestleManias or SummerSlams. All that being said, it is torturous on the performers. It's not easy what they do. The travel is difficult. I'm glad that they have 2 brands. So if you're doing 200 live events, that means roughly 100 per people. Good. Because there have been too many sad stories that we've reported on in the 8+ years we've been doing this show from people who did get run down, who did not save well, who did not prepare well for life after wrestling. Long term, the health of the wrestlers, I think, to me, should be the greatest importance.
Agreed.
Even after they're retired and can't do it anymore. I want them, if I end up at an indie show where a performer I've watched is there, I don't want to be sad going, ugh. Having less dates is good.
Yes.
Having them do other bigger events outside of the country to help expand their audience. It's just a different model. It's a different tactic than what they were doing. Human body is only meant to take so much. Kurt Angle, a year and a half before he came back to WWE, was still putting on 5-star quality matches. And just like that, by not wrestling as often, and because WWE didn't trust him to keep clean because he had shown that he had a propensity of going back to his different vices. But by the time he got back in the ring, like even when he was like the 3rd member of the Shield, like you could still tell like going, something's not quite right. Like I'm like going, oh yeah, he's still got the muscle tone. He still looked good, but you're like going, and it's from all those years of wrestling hurt and forcing himself to do those things. Sometimes himself making the choice to do like the moonsault off the top of the cage in TNA. He did that so damn often. Did he need to do that? No. And again, I put more of it probably on his TNA run than his WWE run. He was in TNA for longer. And I would say he probably exercised more control of his character and more control of his matches in TNA.
Kurt Angle.
But, maybe if he didn't wrestle as much, maybe if he didn't do that, he would have still be wrestling at a high level and not had his last match against Baron Corbin.
Bum-ass Corbin.
Yeah, but hopefully this means, again, in the future that wrestlers will be able to wrestle longer, and when their career is done, the quality of life is going to be that much higher.
Agreed.
I like the move.
I think it's great because it's going to give them a chance to spend more time with their families.
Yeah.
And the one thing that how many episodes of Dark Side of the Ring did we see where they talked about the wrestler and it was like, well, we never saw them. They were always on the road.
Yeah.
That was what happened with, like, I watched the Ted DiBiase thing, and it was like DiBiase was never at home. And I don't think he wasn't Dark Side of the Ring. It was just a documentary they did on Ted DiBiase, I think for A&E, and they talked about how he was never home and it led to all these issues and everything like that. These people need to have lives. They need to be home with their families. They can't just be, the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes or the Legend Killer Randy Orton. They need to be dads. Becky Lynch is the man, but she also needs to be the mom. So this is great for WWE because the wrestlers want to spend time with their families. And, you got to give credit to not only TKO for what they're doing, but the fact that Triple H is somebody that's like, yeah, there's more important things in life than just wrestling.
Triple H, after they had the premium live event a couple weeks ago, Cody Rhodes was the one who was reading off the stats because he's like, it was after Bash in Berlin. Cody was the one reading the stats because he said Triple H needed to go home because his daughter is going off to college and he needs to be there for that. I mean, that tells you everything. Do you think his father-in-law would have done that?
Randy Orton probably wouldn't have been out for a year and a half with back issues if Vince McMahon wasn't such a dipshit about giving people time off. Randy Orton's back was all fucked up and needed to have rest, and Vince was like, no, pal, I need you around. And even though, like, Natty Neidhart came out and did an interview and even said that it's good to have somebody that's in charge that actually cares about the wrestlers. I was like, yep, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse for Vince. Boy, I cannot wait for that shit bomb freaking Netflix shit with Vince McMahon. It is going to be such good shit, pal.
And it comes out, like, when I'm gone. So I'll have to wait a little bit to see it.
Just do it like what the Brainless one's doing. I'm going to wait for all 4 episodes to drop, and I'm going to watch them back to back to back to back to back. And just get it all in because I need all the pals I can. I'm just curious if Vince is in there, how many pals, or not even just Vince, just the people talking about Vince, how many times the word pal is going to be dropped in there? I'm sure it wouldn't be the same as if they did a 4-episode thing on Vince Russo, which they could do 4 episodes of Vince Russo for Dark Side of the Ring. Let's be serious. I know it's not going to reach the bro. I'm telling you, bro.
Let me tell you something, bro.
But I think it's going to be. I'm curious to see how it's going to go and how many pals we get for it, pal.
Yeah.
But again, kudos to both TKO and for Triple H for thinking about the wrestlers and making sure that they have the time they need to spend time with family, to heal up, and just do normal things in their lives.
Yeah.
And the people, and honestly, there's going to be people in WWE that are going to be like, yeah, I'd rather go out there and travel all those days. If it's only 200 days, yeah, I'll go. They're going to have Cody Rhodes, because that whoever the champions are going to be working the shows. You're going to have the people who are going to be more dedicated to do those shows. I'm sure that's where Omos gets a lot of his matches, because God only knows where the hell he's been. I don't think I've seen him wrestle since WrestleMania 39 when Brock Lesnar lifted him up and F5'd him, which was one of the most impressive F5s I've ever seen. Jumped off my couch and flew through the freaking ceiling. It was so great. But I think this is good for WWE, especially with the fact that they're dropping Monday Night Raw back to 2 hours.
I hope it's permanent. I really do.
I hope so too. And it's another win for WWE, and it's just another loss for Tony Khan, just like the Jacksonville Jaguars against Miami on Sunday. Just another loss. Another.
Rip.
Oh, I can't wait to tell my good this week. I've never been more excited to tell my good in the history of the podcast since we started doing Good, Bad, and Brainless. Never been more excited. I'm going to like Ric Flair said after winning the 92 Rumble, when it's here in my eye, this is the greatest day of my life. Woo!
Yeah. All right. So we did get a couple of things announced for Bad Blood. And like we were saying before when we were talking about Brett being injected into Gunther and Sammy, Drew and Punk did not need any more lighter fluid. This thing is already on fire. And Adam Pearce did completely fine setting this up. The outrage, taking off the glasses, and like announcing, yeah, it's going to be the end of this. We're going to see the end of this at Bad Blood with Hell in a Cell. We knew it was coming. It makes all the sense in the world. I want it.
So what you're saying to me is that there's a very, very excellent chance that the Hell in a Cell match at Bad Blood is going to be the main event of Bad Blood. Because it is a blood feud, it is a gimmicked match, and it is named Bad Blood.
It would make an awful lot of sense.
Are you telling me that this means that at some point during the show, the lights are going to go out and it's going to turn red? By God, that's got to be Kane. And Kane, the actual Kane's going to come out and rip the cage open. Please, I need
that. That they have not set that storyline at all. They've set it up more that we might see the girl who made the bracelet, like, you know, probably more similar to, John Cena had the cage match against Bray Wyatt, and you had the referee's son, like,
sing the song.
Singing "He's Got the Whole World in His Hands," who later became a WWE Tag Team Champion.
Was that the same kid?
I think so.
Oh, God damn, that kid's higher on the freaking Hall of Fame line than freaking Coco Beware.
He is.
If Nicholas has been influential on 2 separate WWE premium live events when they were back as known as pay-per-views, oh, he's definitely over the Coco Beware line.
Yeah.
Won more championships in WWE than Coco Beware.
Yes.
And the fact is that Braun Strowman had a choice between Naito and Okada and still went with Nicholas, is still the greatest mystery in the history of professional wrestling.
Very weird. Yeah. So we have the Hell in a Cell match set up, and another match we knew was getting announced. Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. Of course. I mean, and they continued that feud and building that. Really good stuff. The stuff with the Spooky Pals, the new Spooky Pals.
Spooky Pals.
Fighting with the old Spooky Pals. Pretty good. Pretty good.
Somebody needs to explain to me how Dominic Mysterio hasn't gone into business with Tyson. Because if anything, it makes sense that Dominic Mysterio, since he likes chicken nuggets and chicken tenders, why is he not eating spooky nugs? Spooky nuggets.
Well, he could go to the Tyson plant up in Temperatesville, Virginia, on the Eastern Shore, and maybe have a chat with the CEO and see what they can come up with.
It's better than talking to the people at Boar's Head, am I right?
Am I right? Right.
Each and every year, the Commonwealth of Virginia becomes more and more like they want to be Florida, and it just makes me laugh.
Yeah. And we also got, again, this played out on Monday Night Raw, but we will be getting Damian Priest versus Finn Balor at Bad Blood.
Do we see the Demon?
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it makes sense whether or not they pull the trigger. I know they wanted it to be a SummerSlam only thing several years ago, but we have not seen the Demon for a little while.
I know that Finn Balor has actually come out recently and said in an interview, as much as he enjoyed the character and everything with the I was going to say the Fiend, I'm sorry, with the Demon King, he said sitting in that chair for 6 hours getting painted with freaking face paint is just not a lot of fun. So he's like, it's a very good possibility. He goes, but don't, hold your breath on when it's going to happen. I think this is the way that they booked the Demon version of Finn. This really does make a lot of sense that he should be coming out as the Demon against Priest. And
Damian.
Honestly, yeah, with Damian Priest. Yeah.
Demon versus Damian.
Yes, I like it. Those 3 matches alone make me want to watch Bad Blood. Those are 3 excellent matches, all 3 with great builds to them. Bad Blood already is shaping up to be an excellent show, and we don't even know who's going to be representing SmackDown on it.
Right.
So excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Brainless one. I only glanced at PWI's top 500 list. I think I only saw like the top 4 and I mean, I wrote Cody down. I remember seeing the Osprey was on the list.
Yep.
NATO was there.
Yep.
Gunther was there.
Yep.
I think Seth Franklin Rollins was there.
Yep.
Beyond that, I don't know. I'm guessing Roman Reigns is somewhere in there. I know he didn't wrestle a bunch, but just Impact alone, I mean,
he is not in the top 10.
Okay.
I have one massive gripe with this list, and I did not. I kind of just browsed through the whole 300, 500, 8,000 that it was. Just remember, people, once upon a time ago, there was a wrestler called the Garbage Man, who was literally the last name on the list for PWI's top 300 in whatever year it was. And lo and behold, that man turned into not WWE Hall of Famer Duke Droese. He went from the Garbage Man to being a dumpster.
Yeah, I think that was like from like 93 to 94 or 92 to 93.
Something like that.
Yeah.
The only man who has this entrance song on YouTube, and the 15 years it's been on their site, it's only been watched 10,000 times. Because if you wanted to hear his entrance music, just go outside on trash day and just listen to the garbage truck. But nevertheless, I do have the top 10 list.
All right.
Number one, and I am very happy about this one, is Cody Rhodes. Number two, Swerve Strickland.
Yep. Okay.
Osprey is 3. Seth Franklin Rollins is 4. NATO is 5. I keep forgetting what his first name is, and I really don't want to absolutely butcher it. I have a lot of respect for NATO to do that. He's 5. The aforementioned Damian Priest was 6. I was very happy about that one. One MJF was 7th.
Interesting.
John Moxley was 8th. Gunther is 9th. And you're going to laugh your ass off when you hear who number 10 is, because when I saw who number 10 was, I laughed my ass off. I said, there's no fucking way that this person is a number 10 on the list. I will give you his name is Mystico. Once upon a time, Mystico once wrestled for WWE, where he wrestled under a mask and said that he was faceless, and then proceeded to botch every entrance he had because he couldn't time on the trampoline enough. I always laugh about Sin Cara because of the fact that they touted him as Triple H's first big international signing wrestler, and he was about as much of a fart in the wind, an impact in wrestling, than anything else.
The man who took over Sin Cara did better than Sin Cara did.
And the man who took over for Sin Cara was the guy that was riding a bicycle with Tonga Loa. At best, the third best member of the bloodline. And that's only because on any given day, it could be Solo Sikoa is last. Because everybody knows that Jacob Fatu is number 1 by a lot. We're talking secretariat level. He's number 1 in the bloodline. Followed by Tama Tonga. And on any given day, it's either Solo Sikoa or Tonga Loa is the worst member of the bloodline. But yes, Mystico was number 10. I had to look 3 or 4 different times to make sure that this was the same wrestler. The same wrestler I was used to. The same wrestler that I went to SmackDown, and there was little kids cheering him on, calling him Rey Mysterio. Wearing Rey Mysterio masks. Never forget that. What are your thoughts on the top 10 list? Did they get the right guy at the top spot of the list for you, Cousin Jay?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Cody has had a stellar couple years. I've seen online some of the columns out there calling Cody mid. I've never seen somebody more mid. And they're like, oh, he buried AJ. He buried Kevin Owens. And it's like, he's so mid that he outsells everybody at the merch table. He's as mid as John Cena was in the mid 2000s. No, he's the top of the food chain. He hasn't had a really like groundbreaking feud yet. But I mean, we gave Roman Reigns 3 years. And it's easy to develop feuds over that long of a time. So far, they've just spoon-fed Cody these short-term things to get them to whatever premium live event they were having, whether it was the one in France, what was it? Was it Extreme Rules that he had with AJ for the second match? And then we had the Bash in Berlin with KO, and then we had the match with Solo. The match with Solo had a bit more build-up than the other two, but we get the continuation of the Solo feud. But again, it doesn't feel anywhere near as important as what he had going on with Roman, or even what he'll have going with The Rock. So I think Cody, again, like, he's not been a bad champion. He just has not had good storylines, or I shouldn't say not good, but not great storylines. And his storylines have been overshadowed most of this year by Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. And the Spooky Pals.
Yep.
And those things have been going on for a long time. So it's hard to compete with that. I mean, the Drew and CM Punk stuff had not only it started at the Royal Rumble, and those two were just kind of, they were able to let it linger because Punk was out hurt. So you never got to see them beat each other up, so that when they finally did, people were like, yeah. Cody has not had that yet.
That was one of the best strap matches I've ever seen between Drew and Punk. I didn't mention it last week, but I thoroughly enjoyed the strap match that those two had. It was excellent, and not for nothing, CM Punk is undefeated in strap matches. Everyone.
Yeah.
It makes me want to go and watch him versus Raven from I think it was Ring of
Honor. Chris Brown saying it's BS that Cody is not John Cena. I'm just saying mid-2000s John Cena, like 2005, 2006. He was not quite 2007, 2008 John Cena at that point. I'm saying that's where Cody is right now.
For the guy that WWE didn't see him as anything bigger than a mid-card guy, they didn't see him as a main eventer, who left the company in May of 2016, betting on himself because Cody saw himself as one thing, WWE saw him as another thing, and he was probably at that point right in the middle of where they were. Maybe a little bit more towards Cody's side, because the dude killed every gimmick that he did. And he killed it with every gimmick he did. He killed it with Dash and Cody Rhodes. He killed it with the Rhodes Scholars. He was awesome as Stardust. I know he hated the Stardust character. I don't care. I thoroughly enjoyed Stardust as a character. He absolutely just did great things with it.
Dashing Cody Rhodes.
Dashing Cody Rhodes was his best character. With the paper bags over their heads and the mirror and all that. It was fantastic. Loved Cody Rhodes. He is now the WWE champion, the face of the company, the number one wrestler on PWI's list. Cody Rhodes is exactly who he said he was. And I am here to officially accept the fact that Cody Rhodes is the guy that he said he was. And I couldn't be happier for him. He bet on himself, and he won. Unfortunately, with the decision that WWE made, it led to us getting a bunch of fucking douchebags running a wrestling promotion that they kind of just sunk their claws into a freaking mark whose dad has a shit ton of money and just fed him lies and hugs and cocaine. And now we have this abomination called AEW. That is the only issue I have with Cody Rhodes leaving WWE, is that the Young Bucks are now on every Wednesday night, and poor people have to tune out to watch them. Of course, I have no rooms to talk because, you know, the episode of the podcast where I wasn't on and the episode I was on the following week, you would have thought that Mercedes Moné was actually co-hosting with you last week, or the Bucks, because the ratings dropped after I returned for some weird reason. I don't know what the hell happened. I haven't stopped thinking about it in 2 weeks, or actually a week. I couldn't believe the view count from 2 weeks ago, and then it had a Young Bucks on the TV kind of drop, and I was like, great. So what you're saying is I am the Mercedes Moné Young Bucks of the F and Marks podcast. I'm so glad. I'm surprised I haven't killed myself yet.
Yeah.
But my big, and honestly, I had no problem with Swerve. Swerve absolutely deserved to be number 2. I had no problem with Ospreay. He deserved to be number 3. Rollins at number 4. He helped tell that great story at WrestleMania. He wrestled both nights of WrestleMania just like Cody and Roman did. Seth Rollins, for the last year before he dropped the title at WrestleMania, was the MVP of WWE. I'm not saying he was their biggest star, but he was very integral and important to WWE and their success. Seth Rollins deserved to be number 4. Nato, another one that deserved to be number 5. He had another great year. I think he's IWGP World Champion now, so he deserves to be there. You know, Damian Priest at 6. I mean, how could you not be happy for Damian Priest? I mean, seriously.
Think about the premium live event in his home country, main eventing with a music superstar and tearing down the house, winning Money in the Bank, winning the heavyweight championship. He was a tag team champion, I think, this year too.
And his
it's
character,
hard to argue with him being that high on the list.
He was also the leader of a very successful faction that was very much over on Monday Night Raw. And him winning the championship and only being the second wrestler ever to cash in Money in the Bank at WrestleMania. And he absolutely, I know people were saying that his reign was very lackluster. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that Damian Priest. If they decided to put the title on him again, I would have 0 issues with it. So he definitely deserved number 6. I know you seem kind of surprised that MJF was 7th.
I think it was more how long he's been out. They didn't have Roman on the list because he didn't, show up for a lot of the year. I mean, MJF missed a significant amount of time. That's why I was surprised. It's not that I dislike MJF. It's more of like, if you're not going to have Roman in the top 10, I think MJF was on TV about as much as Roman was.
Fair enough.
And by the way, did not have the title like Roman did.
And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because my biggest issue, I mean, 8, 9, and 10. Outside of the fact that Sin Cara was actually number 10 on a PWI list, and it wasn't the worst wrestlers in wrestling, but it was. I still have no words for that. But I think, how is Jon Moxley rated higher than Gunther? Gunther literally lost 1 match, and that was the Intercontinental Championship. He set the record for the longest reign as Intercontinental Champion. He then went on to win King of the Ring and is now the World Heavyweight Champion. He literally lost 1 match. How is it the guy who is known for unclogging toilets and stabbing people in the head with weapons
and choking them out with paper or plastic bags?
How is that fucking Plumber, fuck, a goddamn better wrestler than Gunther. Somebody, anybody, outside of the sickos that Tony Khan books for, justify Jon Moxley. Why? Because he was IWGP World Heavyweight Champion for like 6 days? He missed time too. Nobody, and I mean nobody, in wrestling was more dominant in the ring for more matches than Gunther. I think he's only lost 1 match on the main roster since he got called up. And that was the Sami Zayn at WrestleMania 40. So you're going to hold that against him? He dropped the secondary title, went on to win a tournament to get the #1 contendership, and now is the World Heavyweight Champion. But let's give it to the guy who... I'm sorry. I'm just going to... No. Gunther should have been higher than number 9. Let's be serious. And the fact that Plumber Mox was ahead of him was an absolute joke. And nothing against Damian Priest, but the fact is that Gunther took the title from Damian Priest, so he should have been higher than Priest. But I'd still keep Priest higher than Jon Moxley. But yeah, that was my biggest gripe with the list. But with it also being the top 10 list, it got me thinking. I said, you know what? I bet you I could come up with a better top 10 list for the top 10 wrestlers in the world in 2024.
Yeah.
I will say this. It isn't just WWE. I did give love to a single wrestler in AEW that I felt was well deserving of being in my top 10 list.
Okay.
So this week, it is the top 10 wrestlers in the world according to the Brainless one.
Okay.
Number 10, WWE Catering. Just because they have to deal with Kevin Owens every single week, so you know I had to give them love.
Yeah, yeah.
Number 9, I mentioned him earlier, I'm going with Obafemi. Now we got to put him on there. Number 8, Dominic Mysterio. Not only because of the fact that he is one of the best heels in the industry, but the fact is at SummerSlam, he became the first wrestler in the history of the industry to turn heel after already being a heel. He smokes pot and he hangs out with Liv Morgan. He should be higher than number 8. You see what I did there? Number 7, all ego Ethan Page. He went from relative obscurity in AEW to now being the top guy in NXT. Kind of like Andy Dufresne, he crawled through 400 yards of shit and came out smelling like a flower. Ethan Page was definitely number 7. Number 6, I'm going with Drew McIntyre. The guy who's probably going to win my top heel of the year. Drew McIntyre has had a great year. He has been absolutely killing it since he turned heel. That whole feud with him and Punk this entire year has been fantastic.
Yeah.
That was 6, correct? Because
yes.
I actually had an original list and I screwed it up and I called an audible and I didn't number these, so I'm kind of... And it's that Bristol Eastern education. I'm sorry, people. This guy knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Number 5, I'm going with Jacob Fatu. It seems a little low for Jacob Fatu, and he's already won over the Brainless one, and he is the best member of the Bloodline, and he's going to have all the championships. Just give him all the belts, because I'd give them to him right now anyway. Nobody's stopping that man. Number 4, I'm going with Swerve Strickland.
Okay.
I'm a huge fan of Swerve. I love the whole thing with him and Prince Nana. And the fact that Prince Nana once upon a time wrestled for WWE makes it even better. It's hard to not root for Swerve Strickland. It really is. And I know that I sit here and I crucify WWE. I crucify AEW each and every single week. But that man is one of the very few that is in that company that is against all of my vitriol that I have for AEW. I'm always happy for Swerve. A guy that was released by WWE because Vince McMahon didn't see anything in him, and he became AEW World Champion. So I had to put Swerve at 4. Number 3, I know you're going to be surprised about this one, Gunther.
Yeah.
Even I had him rated higher than PWI did. But, he only lost one match this year. He was the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion in the history of WWE. And he's probably going to be the longest reigning World Heavyweight Champion in the history of WWE once it's all said and done. Gunther is number 3.
Wow, he's not going to lose that title for 10.5 years.
That's the WWE Championship. We're talking about the World Heavyweight title. It's the one that's kind of synonymous with the big gold belt.
All right.
Numero 2. If you say his name, he will appear, and I'm not talking about Beetlejuice. Joe Hendry is my number 2 guy in my wrestlers' power rankings because he has wrestled for not only the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, he also wrestled for the NXT Championship, being the first person outside of WWE to wrestle for a WWE sanctioned World Championship at a WWE Premium Live event. Joe
Is that
Hendry.
True? I thought Jordan Grace did that first.
She defended her championship.
Okay.
I want to say I don't think she fought Roxanne Perez for the title. I could be wrong.
She did.
Maybe he was the
She
first
lost.
male. Maybe he was the first male wrestler then. Maybe that's where I got mixed up.
Yeah.
So, Cousin Jay, that was 2 through 10. Would you care to venture a guess who my number 1 wrestler in the BWI, the Brainless Wrestling Insiders top 10 list? Who do you believe is my number 1 wrestler? I will say this. It is not Curtis Axel, because as much as I wanted to put Curtis Axel on this list, he has not wrestled a match that I know of in a bit, so I couldn't put him on this list, and I was very sad that I couldn't put Curtis Axel, Joe Henning on my list.
I mean, it'd be easy to go with Cody. I don't think you're going to go with Chalk here, though.
And it's nothing against Cody.
I think I'm gonna. I think I have to go with Randy Orton.
Oh, Cousin Jay, you're thinking way too hard.
Okay.
Would you like one more guess, or would you just like me to just explain it to tell everybody what it is?
Just bring it out.
F. Mark's Hall of Famer R-Truth is my number 1 wrestler on planet Earth now. That man is one of the greatest gifts that God has ever given to this world, in the history of this world. There's nobody, and I mean nobody, that thoroughly entertains me week after week with everything they do like R-Truth. If you look up the definition of treasure in the dictionary, there is a picture of R-Truth, just like you
And
can look
Robbie
up the
Ross.
picture. Yes, and Robbie Ross, yeah. You're the only one that thinks Robbie Ross was a treasure, but that's okay. Just like if you look up the definition of GOAT in the dictionary, there's a picture of R-Truth. But yes, R-Truth is my number 1 wrestler, and I will make him my number 1 wrestler every year. He won the tag team titles, won a match at WrestleMania. He had that great segment with Jelly Roll.
And if we ever did a Marquee Award for Hot Tag of the Year, it was definitely him.
You were there for that.
I was there.
That I would have loved to have.
The crowd erupted when he got the hot tag.
Just that whole thing was just fantastic. I love R-Truth. I'm sorry. Absolutely just adore that man. You cannot say a bad thing about Ron Killings on this podcast without pissing off the Brainless one. Kind of like when Jacob Fatu had to relinquish his tag team title and give it to Tonga Loa. That level of pissed off.
My bad.
But yeah, that is my top 10 list.
All right.
Do you have anything else there, Cousin Jay?
No, I think I'm good.
I have one itty bitty tidbit that I want to ask your opinion on before we get into our good, bad, and brainless.
Okay.
So last Friday on SmackDown, after they have done vignette after vignette of Giovanni Vinci, after he was kicked out of Imperium once again, because he's been happening twice, where he actually had a pretty solid run down there in NXT when he was on his own down there. Had some great matches, fought for I want to say for the North American Championship. Had his re-debut on SmackDown this week and lost in 3 seconds. I have to ask you, Cousin Jay, what were your thoughts on that booking decision?
It feels like when they brought back I forget what's his real name, Brian Myers.
Crush?
No, that's Brian Adams.
Oh, Kurt Hawkins.
Yes.
Okay.
When they brought him back and they had all this hype and then he lost like his first like 100 matches. It almost feels like that. It doesn't feel quite like Kazarni, like where he's going to be gone in like a week or two, but I understand doing this on occasion, like he's been on the downward spiral, but I don't know, with Triple H's way of booking, this does not feel like a positive sign, even though they did all these vignettes. It's like, were you just wasting television time to try to hype up this dude? Like, was this all a red herring to just like go, no, yeah, let's see what they do with Giovanni Vici? And like,
see, my only caveat to this, and I could actually say, okay, it wasn't the worst decision, was the fact that before the match, when the referee was telling them to get ready and do his thing and take off his jacket, and he kind of half-assed it and he took his forever, and then the referee rang the bell, and Apollo Crews snuck up behind him while he still had the jacket on and pinned him 1, 2, 3. I thought that was a little creative. I thought it was stupid still that they had him lose as quickly as they did. I'm just not like Pitchfork and Torch pissed off where I have to go to wherever their new headquarters is because they got rid of Titan Tower in Stamford, Connecticut. Rip.
well, I think it's like, I'm not going to say across the street. I think it's within like a quarter mile of the old place.
I really want to buy Titan Tower in the worst possible way. You think if I sell at least a kidney, I can do it? No, I didn't think so.
So Cody won clean in the cage match. They started SmackDown with it. And it says Jacob Gary is jumping off the cage onto Cody. Oh, and now the man with the wettest hair.
Oh, good. So we could do our good, bad, and brainless and the whole Curtis Axel bit. And by the time we're finished with the podcast, Roman will be at the ring. Got it.
Yes. I bet he's doing his version of doing a dance instead of, saving the person.
Yes. But that's all my notes as well. I think it's time for our good,
our bad,
and our brainless. All right, Cousin Jay, what do you got for your good this week?
I could have gone with the GOAT. I didn't. There were a lot of good things that happened this week.
Very much.
I just absolutely love that Gunther went there with Bret Hart while Bret Hart was in the ring. I'm sure he told Bret beforehand that he was going to do it. But it was beautiful. Bret's reaction to it was great. Just all around beautiful.
It was such good shit, pal. I like your pick, and I'll tell you right. I'll say this. I really wanted to give it to Sami Zayn for wearing the Johnny Gaudreau jersey in Calgary to kind of pay homage to him after he lost his life tragically the way he did. In fact, it was penciled in to be my good for this week. And I said, you're going to have to do something that's so incredibly incredible for me to top that. And R-Truth went out there on Wednesday and said, hold my beer. Shannon Sharp, former NFL tight end, Super Bowl, two-time Super Bowl champion, played for, three-time Super Bowl champion because he won one with Baltimore as well. I forgot.
Yeah.
Hall of Famer, second best player in his family. He even said it. Sterling was better. Don't at me, people. Had an Instagram live where he was doing unmentionable things to a woman, and you can hear it all. That you couldn't see it. All you could hear in the background was Shannon Sharp breaking this woman's back. Is the best way to put it. That isn't the reason why it's on my list for my good this week. It was the fact that R-Truth was basically live streaming it, writing in his comments, and just saying, "You can't do that, Unc. That's not very PG." Are they fucking? Pardon my French. My favorite was, you got to give her that hock to it. If that was
breathing hard.
If all those comments during the live feed wasn't enough, R-Truth on Thursday said, hold my other beer, and did his own Instagram live where he was making the noises like this, and he was talking. And Jay, I'm telling you, when he did the Hak Tua, I was in tears. When I say with a tear in my eye, it was the greatest day of my life, I absolutely meant it, because I did actually have tears of laughter in my eyes because I was laughing so hard from what R-Truth did, to the point where I am now 1,000% convinced that R-Truth is going to be a two-time FMR Hall of Famer, and he'll be the first one. R-Truth gets my good for this week because that was just absolute positive gold. It was beyond gold. It was platinum. It was that good.
Yeah.
What do you got for your bad?
So WWE did a thing. They wanted to capitalize on all that's going on with Drew McIntyre and CM Punk, that they decided that they wanted to sell friendship bracelets. They didn't ask the little girl that made the friendship bracelet. They didn't need to legally, but it would have been cool if they did. But they start selling it on WWE Shop. And less than a week later, they pull it down without saying anything from WWE Shop. So either they did not get their legal in order, and or did not want the bad publicity of like, oh crap, maybe we should have asked her before we started licensing something and making a profit off it. But how do you do that? You start production on a whole bunch of these friendship bracelets at $10 a pop, and then just like gone. It wasn't like Chris Jericho and AJ Styles having the T-shirts made for their like 2 nights. Yeah.
They sold the shirt for a week, and then Jericho turned on AJ Styles because that made all the sense in the world. And then the guy who lost to Fandango at WrestleMania beat AJ Styles for some weird reason.
But I mean, from the storytelling standpoint, and Jericho wanting to like really sell the fact that they were going to be a team, I guess I get it. But yeah, it's like, really. So that was my bad.
That's an excellent bad too, Jay. I'm telling you, that was a really good one. I even thought about that as well, but I'm giving it to Giovanni Vinci in the way that they booked him on SmackDown last week, having him lose in 3 seconds to Apollo Crews. If he had lost to Strowman after a power slam and got beat, okay, fine. it's believable. If he had had him lose to Jacob Fatu in 3 seconds, completely believable. And it's nothing against Apollo Crews, because Apollo Crews is a great in-ring performer, and he has lasted a hell of a lot longer in WWE than I thought he was going to, because he was just a good hand in the ring and just wasn't, he had no personality, and he didn't really talk on the mic.
Dave Winfield.
So, yeah, he was Dave Winfield. He's always smiling. Never seen Dave Winfield frown, and I've never seen Apollo Crews frown. So, but yeah, I'm sorry. Giovanni Vinci losing in 3 seconds on his re-debut on SmackDown as a singles competitor gets my bet for this week. What do you got for your brainless?
It's so brainless that I might have to even start giving myself some points for brainless next week. I forget who it was, but this week on Dynamite, somebody won the #1 contendership to take on Bryan Danielson, a.k.a. Daniel Bryanson, at Grand Slam for the heavyweight championship. Now they are having that person go in a match with Jon Moxley with the #1 contendership on the line at Grand Slam. It didn't make sense when WWE did that all those years ago. It doesn't make sense today. This is dumb shit that turns me off. Like, I don't like it. And Tony Khan, get the nose candy out of your life. Thank you.
Say it. Say it. Say Tony Khan is the person that is behind your brainless. Just say it. Just give me what I want. You know what I want? Give me what I want.
Tony Khan, you get my brainless for that booking crap.
Yes! I love it! That's another thing that distracts my veins, baby. Because you know what's funny? I too give AEW my brainless for this week. Whether it's Tony Khan or the whole company or their fans or whatever it is. I just give AEW my brainless for this week. Because I can only imagine what kind of bullshit lie that Dave Meltzer pulled out of his ass for the shitty ratings for AEW Dynamite this week after another post-pay-per-view show that they just had 2 weeks ago, too. They had another
arena
in the empty arena that a fan came out on, and I posted it on Facebook yesterday, where a fan came out and said that the reason that nobody was there in Lexington, Kentucky is because there is a serial killer on the loose in Lexington, Kentucky, which is why nobody left their house. Do you really think that when John Wayne Gacy and Jeffrey Dahmer were terrorizing the areas they were in, that people were not leaving their houses? Oh, no, I'm not even going to go to work. I could get killed by Jeffrey Dahmer.
I mean, there were some, and heck, even in our time brainless one, think of the DC Sniper.
Yes.
People didn't stop going out and doing stuff. They were more cautious.
Yep.
But people still did stuff. I don't think 10,000 people stayed home in Knoxville because there's a serial killer out. I think there were 10,000 people who decided they had something else they wanted to do.
On top of that, they did another unprotected chair shot after getting crucified for the unprotected chair shot that Jack Perry, of all the people who deserved one to the head, an unprotected chair shot, Jack Perry, in his match against in the Blood and Guts.
Was that against? Or was that the cage match?
That was the cage match when Darby Allin cracked him in the head and then was going to light him on fire, and they were like, "I quit."
Mm.
Don't set him on fire. We quit. I still would have set him on fire if I was Darby Allin. But the fact is that at the end of the Daniel Bryanson versus Jack Perry match, they did the bit with the Blackpool Combat Club and Jon Moxley, who already has a bad reputation as it is, put a plastic bag over Bryan Danielson's head and tried to suffocate him And to the point where fans were chanting attempted murder during the show. Tony Khan, you need to lay off the coke. Jon Moxley, you're not a badass. Hangnail, Adam Page, you're not Magnum TA. And AEW fans, you're not mentally well. So take all of that combined, wrap it up, turn it sideways, and that is my Brainless for this week.
Yeah.
So, if you like what you've seen, whether you are a first-time watcher or a continuous fan, make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on the Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube at the letter T, the letter H, the letter E, the letter F, the letter N, MARKSTFN Marks. If you like, follow, and subscribe to us, we will do the same back. That has always been our
mantra. And make sure you set up notifications so that when we are live, you will be notified that we are live so you can join in the conversation and talk about our favorite sport we all love to hate.
All Elite Wrestling.
New York Jets?
Yes, New York Jets. Just any football that is played in the state of New Jersey, honestly, at this point.
Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones is yes, very much Daniel Jones is trash.
But set notifications on the X, on the Facebook, on the YouTube, and yeah, we're here for it. We're here for it.
Yeah.
I
guess that's it.
Yep, absolutely nothing else to cover. We
covered all the bases and everything.
Absolutely everything except.
By God, it's FN Marks Hall of Famer Curtis Axel. What is it that you need to tell us, Curtis Axel? Well, this is the end of the show, Brainless One. So there's only one thing left to do. And what is that? It is to remind everybody that today, Friday the 13th, in September, at an astonishing 3,519 days, I, FN Marks Hall of Famer Curtis Axel, is still alive in the 2015 Royal Rumble.
Down, 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 down,
So, for episode 374 of everyone's favorite wrestling 374 of everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, the FN Marks.
I'm Jay.
And I am the leader heading into the clubhouse for Brainless for next week, the Brainless One. Make sure you mark out
with your guac out. See ya, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you all next week.
Yeah.
I had to do the fireworks too. I couldn't be out of that. Yeah.